bad news.
Okay, I guess it's up to me. Welcome to Parrot TV. This is Friday, July 2nd. And we are going to talk about what happened at the Board of Elections. So who would like to start?
Well, I was at the Board of Elections. I was there Monday and Tuesday, and I noticed that everything was business as usual. They're just looking and observing absentee ballots. It had nothing to do with those ballots going into the scanner. There's a process where you have to make sure that people voted properly before they go into the machines. But then I also noticed that there wasn't really true accountability during this primary process. And there were people that were talking that numbers just didn't seem right. And I have to agree. But you can't say that there was fraud unless you have evidence. So I asked the deputy clerk, who happened to be the GOP, I forgot his name. I know I told this to Dion Powel, and he said that I was being facetious because I was asking who had control of the data sticks. Then, about 5 hours later, we get word that there was a glitch and there was a problem with the test results that they did, the preliminary, and it was from Queens County. And so, and then you saw that the deputy inspectors were acting a lot differently because, you know, remember, they're deputy clerks. They're not the people that call the shots downtown. They make calls, but then I noticed that there was a little bit of a antsieism going on.
Hey,
and then
Robert,
look at the reports.
Robert, since we have a new guest, I think we should let Efrain introduce himself for like 30 seconds. Nobody knows who he is, except for us. No offense.
Yes, Efrain, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Efrain Gonzalez III. I'm a Bronx resident since 1967, born and raised in the Bronx. And I am a Democrat. I'm a conservative Democrat, a blue dog Democrat. I work for Montefiore. I'm with 1199, although I have no input in how the PAC makes their decision because I had no input in this election or any other election. I'm just a delegate that I take care of the members and I help members in the hospital system that I work in. I'm also a veteran. I'm with the American Legion, but I don't mix politics with the American Legion because we're not allowed.
Efrain, we're going to have to cut you off because we have only a half-hour show here.
Yeah.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Robert Kress. I'm a journalist, as you can see by my official New York City Police Department. I write for the Bronx Chronicle, Rochester Times, Co-op City News, and I have my own blog. So let's move on to Anthony. Quickly, tell us who you are.
My name is Anthony Rivieccio of the Northwest Bronx Democrats, and celebrating my 25th anniversary as the owner and CEO of the Financial Advisors Group.
Dion, you want to introduce yourself?
Dion Powel, founder of the New York Free Thinking Democrats. You can search for it on Facebook.
Oh, and I should say, in regards to Efrain Gonzalez, you can find all of his comments and videos at Facebook groups page, Northwest Bronx Democrats. So he doesn't
let's go
one to the other, but that's all his videos on our Facebook page.
All right, guys.
He should be in
let's
our
go
page
into
too,
one thing before the election results. Let's go into one thing. Does anybody have any comments about the city council placement of candidates, where it seemed that Bronx Democratic candidates were either 1, 2, or 3? They never got any lower. And we had some races which had 6 or 7 candidates. But their candidates were always number 1, number 2, or the 2 of them that were number 3 were Marjorie Velazquez, who really didn't have the race, and Kevin Riley, where there were only 3 people. Any comments? And when the person drawing the so-called ping pong balls out of the bingo machine, he wasn't looking at the numbers there. He looked down at a piece of paper. Anybody have any comment on that? Efrain?
Well, I wasn't there, Robert, so I guess we're going to have to go by what you witnessed, and if you wrote about it, and if nobody else picked it up, well then I would say that is your grand story. Yeah, there is a little bit of skepticism on how that process was done. And I was very disappointed by the selection from the Bronx Democratic County Committee. They really missed the ball here, but we got to understand that how politics runs that organization.
Do you think that they should have had two candidates in council races because they did in the controller's race, they had Brian Benjamin, who was at 5% in the polls, and that's probably what he wound up with. And they came in with Corey Johnson as a second choice. So should they have done with their district leaders? Oh, well, we're picking this person, and then number two will be our district leader. Should Bronx County pick more than one candidate?
I think that if there is a ranked choice, if they're going to go with that, then yeah, there should be multiple choices. I don't even think that it matters because I think that it's how you run your race. But, you know, they could pick a couple of candidates. If they're going to be diverse with the voting, then we should be diverse with the endorsements.
Dion,
One,
any opinion?
2, 3.
Dion?
Well,
You think that,
the only race we should focus on is Amanda Farias and William Rivera. That's a very close race, and that I think deems heavy scrutiny.
so you don't think that any other race can change?
Unless Helen Foreman Hines and her people get together, and maybe even call me for help, that's the only thing I can see being close.
What about the mayor's race, though? You don't think that's going to change?
There's gonna be some big fireworks happening, gentlemen, that I'm hearing from the city, state, and federal level with that situation that will be trickling down to everybody else. Stay tuned.
And Anthony, who said that Catherine Garcia has a good chance of winning? You're a journalist right here, correct?
I don't know that let me rephrase that. Plurality of the city believes that Ms. Garcia is a viable candidate. I would go as far as saying, oh, I think Dion actually hit the nail on the head. You know, we can talk numbers all day long, but I think what we found, and you just mentioned it yourself, was a system where the people created it, but didn't create any rules to it. So now you have a system that was created with absolutely no rules. So what do the government do? Oh, we don't have any rules, so we got to create them as we go along. We're going to copy that off of other states, and then maybe we'll tweak over here and tweak over there. And guess what? That ball system you just talked about, for all I know, that could be part of that system. Because again, when it was created, there was no system. And now, of course, we're finding out with the dummy ballots, guess what? Not only do we have one set of fingerprints, we actually have two fingerprints. So as I've been saying all along, we've had monkey wrenches for 20 years. Now the monkey wrenches have been exposed. So the question now becomes, the numbers to me at this point don't mean anything. The best proof you have is probably Dion Powell, who can tell you about the 50 million lawsuits that are currently on standby. Okay,
Why,
so
why we have
lawsuits
Anthony?
and the hearings at the state senate, where what's her name is going to try to look like the god princess because she calls it a national embarrassment. The only thing that's going to happen between a do-over is that 75% of the Board of Elections is going to get fired.
Well, Anthony, you've been a top poll coordinator for the Board of Elections in previous years. Can you explain how these sample ballots came about? Or do the coordinators vote, or do the workers put sample ballots? Where did they come from?
Well,
Anthony.
let me say this. I have been a coordinator.
Anthony was the coordinator, so he would know, Dion.
I was coordinator for the Board of Elections for almost 10 years.
Right.
And I can tell you that I was not coordinator for this particular election, but for 10 years prior. As I said to someone last night, never has the Board of Elections prior to this election had a test ballot. If they decided to ever have one, I think the best time would have been the day before, because people that work for the Board of Elections know that the day before Election Day, their sites have team meetings to get ready for the next day. So if you're going to have a test run, that would have been the best time to do it. In the last 10 years, of course, we didn't have ranked choice voting then, but in the last 10 years, the Board of Elections, to the best of my knowledge, has never had a test ballot case.
Well, you're saying that Monday, right before the election, which would be after the early voting, would be the time to do it. But if that's done, wouldn't, isn't that where these 135 ballots came in from? Because you're counting the early voting ballots, and then you're going to primary dates. So was that the way they got mixed in, if it happened that way? Efrain, well, let's move on.
They
No,
could have
I
gotten
don't
it in a
believe it
variety of
happened that
different.
way. I believe that this also puts into some, this makes us very suspicious, the early voting process. Who was controlling the data in each? There's two sticks that they use, one for the one votes and then the other for the ranked choice voting. Now, if they were going to do a test and they're adding, now remember one more thing, it had this not been picked up, nobody did anything. This is how troubling it is. I believe that there was fraud. To find it, it's going to have to take an extreme, harsh investigation. But the Board of Elections admitted, and I will tell you that I could not believe I ever read this, but Frederick M. Umani had said in a statement with Miguel Mia Camilo, and I'll just quote one thing. They said that as we continue to count the absentee ballots, I'll go on to say that we must regain the trust of New Yorkers. Folks, they got exposed. And Bob, this probably was a jostling between county organizations because who knows if that was a mistake? It could have been intended that way. So that's why this has to be done.
You're absolutely right, because Corey Johnson was put in by the Queens and the Bronx County organization. You're absolutely right. Now,
Corey
Dion
Johnson, and I will add, Bob, that Corey Johnson manipulated to get Andy King out of office, and we can do that on another show, but to get the endorsement from Vanessa Gibson, so you got that Kevin Riley councilman to go in there, but look at where the infraction happened. Now you got to look at the Bronx, because I believe that the Bronx and the Queens are like twin sisters, but that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, Dion, do you think this is going to be straightened out by November? Or should we make Curtis Sliwa the mayor or keep Bill de Blasio on? Because this may not be figured out.
Bill Pepitone.
Yeah, but that means using the voting
He's a
machine.
good man. Bill Pepitone is a good man. Former NYPD, very rational man. Republican, very rational man. He's running conservative.
Okay, well, he's not running on the Republican line. Curtis Sliwa is.
He's a Republican, but he's running on the conservative line.
Okay, let's move on to, like you said, Efrain, or somebody said, the 18th council race. Well, who is the winner there? Who are the predictions? I have my own prediction, which I'll come in last. Let's start with you, Dion. Who wins the 18th council race? Because that's your hood. Dion?
Is it? Because it's below Tremont? That sounds racist. Anyway, I'm going to go with probably William Rivera, even though.
What's your prediction on the 18th council race?
Normally speaking, I would say William Rivera will pull it out, but as with the rest of my predictions on this show, I will say the winner will be the powers that be. Because if the powers that be can affect the mayor's race, the powers that be can affect any race. So the winner of this election will be the powers that be.
Wait a minute, Press, I got a question. Who is county supporting? Let's start there. Okay, who is county supporting according to you?
They were supporting Amanda Frias. And Congresswoman Ocasio's PAC was supporting Amanda Frias and Michael Belzer, which is perfectly legal because the board, the campaign finance board, this was, and the charter commission said, we need friendly elections. Candidates should work together. So if Belzer's working with Frias, then that means his votes should drop down to her. But I don't think that's going to happen. We all know that Mohammed Mujunda was working with William Rivera, and his 11%, which came in third, should go to William Rivera, which will push him over. Efrain, any comments? Efrain. Are you there, Efrain?
I think William Rivera is going to win, barely, but this really, you know, for us, she's aligned with some POC people, even though they got AOC in, and they in that district, I feel like there was no connection with what you had just said with the Muslims that vote, and a lot of them are voting now more than before. And I think that's how it's going to work for William Rivera. Ferraris just needs to have the right person to show her how to win. I was not involved in anybody's race, but I saw a lot of mistakes. And being aligned with Luis Sepulveda, I don't care what anybody says. Eventually, you will meet your karma. So,
Well,
go
you don't
ahead
like
with the
Luis
county
Sepulveda?
thing.
What seems to be
The
wrong with
county
Luis
leader
Sepulveda?
doesn't even know what he's doing.
Wow, it
Luis
seems that some of us
Sepulveda-
did.
So if we're gonna put a spoiler in that race, by the way.
What does everybody think of Natalia Fernandez's performance in the borough president's race? 14.5%.
Nasty. She's nasty. She's a nasty girl. She went after someone's domestic violence place, and she also went after Cabrera for being with the cops. She was doing nothing but mudslinging. I'm happy with that, and I wish more candidates would do it too.
Don't forget
Wait a
Vanessa Gibson.
minute,
with
hold
the
on,
traffic
Bob.
tickets.
Bob, and Dion, in case of violence, if Ferraris had went and spoke out against domestic violence, she would have gotten more votes. You see, you got to show us who you are. You can't be aligned with the man who's beating his woman, whether or not
Wait,
it was a little bit or not. But you know what?
Efrain, you got to put allegedly beating. You can't
Okay,
say beating.
allegedly.
Okay.
It wasn't the first time. So
And Sepulveda answered Natalia Fernandez when Natalia Fernandez said, "Oh, I would like to see Senator Sepulveda stop beating his wife." Okay,
Yeah.
he said, "In what country are we? Here we're presumed innocent until guilty." And we know that he's done,
put a case out. Listen, let me tell you something.
but we know he's had problems with his wife.
No,
I'm not.
the
I'm
fact
just
that the Fernandez and Sepulveda were there to help county split the Latino vote will tell you why they were able to remain and be. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I look at the leadership that wanted to do that. And then I said, that's a disrespect to the Puerto Ricans, to the Dominican. First of all, the Puerto Ricans were the ones that opened the doors. And I will tell the Black leaders that we can actually get a Black congressman representative. I actually think we need one to go all the way up to Mount Vernon. So you know what? I'm not a fan of Espaillat, but I am a fan of the Blacks not being disenfranchised. And I'm going to ask that they do that, that we get a seat from Queensbridge to Harlem in the middle of the Bronx, and then we be inclusive, because this election, the Blacks were for themselves and the Latinos were fending for themselves. And you know what? We're not going to go anywhere with a Jamal Bailey that is a puppet to a Stanley Schlein that allowed that. And then they're going to tell us that we got to be united. Go fly a kite, folks.
What's a kite, old timer? See, you got Efrain started.
Right.
Anthony Rivieccio just started. Anthony, what do you think about that? Because you're very outspoken against Stringer and Sepulveda. So why don't you chime in here, because you have some thoughts after you take another pull of your bag.
What do you want me to chime in on?
You've consistently defended Stringer and Sepulveda. So we're what Mr. Efrain
No,
said.
I've never defended any of them. What I said was, as Robert just said, the law says a person is innocent until proven guilty. But in today's society, as I've said throughout the show on several occasions, today's political society is throw out an allegation and all of a sudden it chokes him around his neck, whether he or she is guilty or not. And that's what happens in today's society. I don't know.
It's called public opinion. Public opinion.
And quite frankly, I don't care. But I know the law and the courts have not answered that question. So until they answer it, all I know is the public has said he's guilty. Just like Scott Trier, he's guilty.
it's not the public, Anthony. It's certain media that's controlled by socialists. social who don't want certain people in.
So are you saying then that the media, so then are you saying that the media was the one that put in the dummy ballots? I mean, how did
No,
Stringer's
the media
numbers get
didn't.
so low?
No, the media.
Right? Either the powers that be did it or the general public did
No,
it. One
Anthony.
of the two.
Anthony, why are we not seeing any more riots since been elected? It's the same situation, same atmosphere, but there's no riots. If Donald Trump was reelected, you'd be seeing riots out there, right? Okay. It is the
You are seeing
how can I
riots
say it?
right
The
now.
elite.
You are seeing riots right now. Last year you saw riots and no lawsuits. Today you're seeing no riots, but 1 million lawsuits.
Right.
And at the end of the day, those are going to be more potent.
Yes, yes.
Efrain,
And there
comment?
are going to be people that are going to go to jail when this all gets exposed. I don't know who, but it's going to happen because this is corruption, folks. This election was corruption, and they got exposed. And Bob,
Hey.
you're a reporter. You're a reporter. I can't wait for you to do that story because you know what? I will tell people around the country, read what he wrote.
I
Read it.
agree. I can't wait either. I agree.
Ephraim, I'm going to tell you this. Okay, the past two elections before this, I had problems at poll sites. Bronx Science was with the special election. 3 days I had the police said, "Are you going to arrest me? I want to sue the Board of Elections for $1 million." I have my authorization, but no, it's just that there were certain Democratic coordinators that wanted to give me a hard time. I don't know why.
We have.
And wait, Dion, let me finish. Dion. This election, I visited probably 15 to 20 poll sites, and I had no problems. I saw it was a very easy poll site. But the one thing I found, and I have a photo of it, a coordinator was opening the scanner machine and pushing the ballots down. Now, the other coordinator was with him. And in other poll sites, they had the police officer to watch this. Now, how do we know that ballots weren't put into these machines or taken out? Okay. The problem is that the machines do not hold enough ballots. You have a 2-piece ballot and only holds, say, 100 pieces when you're giving 200 pieces. That's the problem. And whose machines are these? Gee, I wonder whose. Ephraim, any answer?
We have.
You know what? These are machines that were, and that whole system was from out of New York, and they didn't have it down packed. And in closing, because I know we're closing up, I don't believe that Yudelka Tapia lost that race in the 14th. But if it is what it is, I will help her in 2023, and I will make sure that she's gonna make sure, because you know what, this was a crazy election, but they did her wrong, because there is no way you could drop a woman like a stork and tell me that she was
no honor amongst thieves. She got what she got, and she deserved it. You see my face, how angry it is. But seriously, RCB is gonna be interesting.
Dion, let me ask Dion a question.
Yudelka was fighting you. She was helping people like you, Dion. You just don't want to realize it. I know people in that district that she helped. Even the African immigrants that came, that woman helped. So,
that's true. They did Yudelka Tapia dirty, but she should have saw it coming. So she deserves what she gets. She knows the game. Okay. She knows her base. Espion. I would say Wepa, but that's racist, right, Efrain?
Well, I'm glad
you just mentioned the magic name, Dion. Efrain, Adriano Espion now has control of the 14th and the 15th council districts.
Right.
So,
make way for the Dominicans. Here comes the Dominicans.
Adriano Espaillat is going to get a rude awakening because I'm going to get involved in what his next campaign for Congress.
I don't think so.
I'm going to tell you something. He's going to, he hasn't seen a real battle.
I will say that Biden's Department of Justice won't do anything. So I'll put that out there now.
But
Dion, let me ask you a question.
You knew that from the get-go.
Ephraim, let me ask Dion a question. What was the expectations of Sammy Ravello? Was it 10%, 20%? I know you want to win, but what was the real expectation of Sammy Ravello? Because Sammy came in with 1.8%. What went wrong in Sammy's campaign? Dion.
Well, I will say this. I've been gagged until we go to court with Stanley Schlein. How about that? In the meantime, it looks like my predictions of Cuomo not running for re-election are coming true. So you guys were wrong.
Well, he's had a fundraiser already. No one else has. Okay. You don't think that Letitia James is going to run?
She's dragging her feet right now with their impeachment.
Hey, any words? My quote about Sammy, my question about Sammy Ravello to him. What did you think Sammy thought he was going to get when he entered the race?
Well, I can't answer that question. I never asked Sammy that question. I was never in the inner workings of the campaign, like Mr. Powell. So actually, that question would be more suited for Mr. Powell.
Basically, do you think Sammy got what he got? Because we saw other Dominicans win. We saw Oswald Felice win. We saw
Exactly.
Karina
The Dominican
Sanchez
vote
win.
was nice.
Why
and
couldn't
choppy.
Sammy get more votes?
What I said.
SBI.
I'm going to go back to what I said originally. Today, we now see that the powers that be won. Did the powers that be affect the Sammy portion of the race? After what I've seen the last 72 hours, there's no doubt in my mind that that's a plausibility.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
Sammy should have gotten at least 10% of the vote. Look, he was out there hustling, but the powers that be, and Anthony hit the nail on the head. Those data sticks. Who put in and who put out votes? Because that's really what we're talking about now.
Well, we all know powers that be are concerned that I'm involved because I have a few tricks up my sleeve with Sam when current to that. So you have to stay tuned.
Well,
Okay.
I have to give it to Vanessa Gibson. When I was asked 2 months ago by powers from the county organization, I said Vanessa won't get more than 25%. She obviously had 39%. We don't know if it's going to stay with the absentee ballots and then ranked choice voting, but I have to give it to Vanessa Gibson because she was out there and she was hustling, really. She went all around the borough.
Bob, quick question for you. Based on your own analysis, right? Based on your own analysis, you just said that Vanessa Gibson got 40% more than you expected. Do you believe that Vanessa Gibson actually achieved that, or do you think the powers that be might have had a little help in that process?
That's, yeah.
From 25 to 40 is 15 or almost a 40% increase.
Anthony, as a coordinator, you know what goes on inside poll site. People come in.
But that wasn't the question I asked you. The question I asked you was, do you believe Vanessa Gibson achieved that 40% on her own, or do you think that B might have had a little help?
Well, the last week she was seen with Borough President Diaz everywhere at events, because I know the events I
Well, that didn't help Ms. Gibson.
I know Ruben Sr. supported Cabrera.
That didn't help Ms. Tapia. So how did that help this situation?
Well, he can't be everywhere. He was with Councilwoman Gibson. He was, don't forget, he also supported Marjorie Velazquez, who won. He couldn't be everywhere.
Bob, I believe there was manipulation in the votes. We'll just have to let this investigation go by. And if it is what it is, I guarantee you in 4 years, Gibson, if she sneaks in, there's going to be a big revolt because I really don't. So you got to watch this. Watch how it plays out in the mayor's race. People won't look, but I think the Board of Elections is going to have a big overhaul. You just saw that corruption is finally getting exposed. Big time, big time. That never happened before. What happened the other day?
The saddest part about this whole situation is that Eric Adams was the one that found the mistake. So even the Board of Elections putting in their test run had no backup system for their own test run. That's the saddest part of this.
Anthony, the proof is that Garcia went around with Yang and she wound up with a majority of his votes. That's ranked choice voting. That's what the candidates should be doing. You strong candidates work.
No, what you're saying is that, no, what you're saying, Bob, is that from round 1 to round 11, Garcia's numbers went up by 50%. So again, I'm asking the same question. Do you believe Garcia did that all on her own? Or do you think the powers that be had something in regards to that?
She did it through ranked choice voting by working with other candidates so their votes would come to her. You'll see this in the council races. In the 14th council race,
So
Haley
Mrs.
Rivera-
Establishment,
wait.
so
Let me
Mrs.
answer,
Establishment,
Anthony.
right? Because Ms. Garcia was known as being an established candidate. She always said, I'm the established candidate, I got the work done, right? So you're telling me
She's not a
that the
politician.
establishment that everybody says wouldn't vote for, she won.
Anthony, I was with at events of all the mayoral candidates, just about, okay? Catherine Garcia had very few people with her. Eric Adams always had dozens of people with him, okay? So she wasn't the machine candidate. Eric Adams was the machine candidate, all right? But let's go back to
I
the
didn't say
14th.
anything about being the machine. What I said was when she was the
Not the
established.
established. So you're saying she was Bill de Blasio's candidate then? Are you saying that?
Wasn't she?
Bob.
Yes.
Queens went with McGuire. No. He was not no. When the Bronx and Queens go differently, then you know there was something going on there. That's